Hello, everybody, and welcome to Communicator Accelerator. I am your host and communication expert, Chad Eves. Today, we're going to talk about your audience, agility, and a little bit of rock and roll. When we go out to talk to people in a business context, usually, hopefully, we have a plan of some type. We've used the strategies, the techniques, the practices that you've learned here and put together a plan and practiced it so that when we talk to someone, we're ready to do so in a way that's going to maximize the chances of us achieving our desired outcome. Hopefully, that's the case. Hopefully, you're not out there winging everything everywhere. One thing that's important to keep in mind, though, is we're not doing the communication for the sake of communication. It's important that we keep in context that we're doing it to achieve that desired outcome, and we're doing it to get our audience to help us achieve that desired outcome. Now, I say this because there are times that we put a lot of time and effort and money into preparing a communication activity. This might be an important presentation. Maybe it's at a conference convention in front of a big client. It's putting together a big report. It could be, putting together things for visual communication, creating infographics, flyers, etc., whatever it might be. And when we do that, it can be difficult for us to deviate from the plan, which in some instances is exactly what we need to do. We might be on the way to a meeting. Maybe we're flying or in a car, we're walking into the building or even walking into the room where our audience is, and something changes. We hear something, we see something, we get a text, an email, a phone call, maybe. There is a new opportunity that we were not anticipating. We came into a meeting or an event with the idea of saying or presenting or writing, delivering some kind of report because of X. And now you see Y and you see Z. And what do you do in that point? It's important that we remain flexible and agile in those situations, and that we keep in mind that the primary reason why we're communicating is to achieve that desired outcome, and it's to help our audience to help us achieve that desired outcome. Now, when this happens, it can be painful in a certain way. A lot of effort and time's been put into creating this effort. You're excited to deliver it, and you need to change it. Perhaps a little bit, perhaps radically, perhaps you have to get rid of it altogether and create a new plan. It happens. And we have to stay focused on that desired outcome and on those opportunities as they present themselves. We have to be agile enough to respond to that so we can best serve our audience. And we're going to talk about a real world example of this happening in the world of rock and roll. Now, as you notice, I've dressed down a little bit today. I'm wearing a t shirt of my favorite rock band, Rush. For those of you who are unfamiliar with them, they are a rock band from Toronto, and they're largely regarded as, if not the father, the Godfathers, the people that really brought progressive rock to the front. They are very intelligent musicians, very talented musicians. They have very complicated arrangements, very deep lyrics that they write. It's not like bubblegum music in many, if not most respects. And their fan base really is only, kind of compared to that of Grateful Dead. It's a very dedicated fan base. And what we're going to talk about is an instance that happened in the late 70s and early 80s. Now, some of you may be going, Rush, who's Rush? If you're not familiar with them, go check them out. Their music's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music and other sources. You probably will recognize at least the introductions to some of the songs. Tom Sawyer, Spirit of Radio, and some others, just to name a few. And what happened at the end of the 70s, the band started, I think their first album came out in the early 70s. And they were doing the concept albums, the more complicated stories and arrangements um, that they were first known for. Well, at the end of the 70s, they made a slight shift into more commercial appeal rock. And that album that signified this term is called Permanent Wave. And the song off of that album was Spirit of Radio. If you go and listen to it, I'm willing to bet you've probably heard it at some point. So, Spirit of Radio was a big success. They toured, a lot of success. They got a lot of attention, more so than they had had before. And their original plan was to release a concert album from that tour and take some time off. And this is a tale that's told on one of Apple Music's interview podcasts, and I'm sure you can find it if you search for it. If I can find the link for it, I'll put it in the show notes here. But the two surviving members, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, tell this tale. Unfortunately, their drummer Neil Peart passed away some time ago. And what had happened is, while they were planning on doing this live album and taking time off, someone in their circle of influence was like, I don't know if that's the best thing to do. Now, keep in mind, when we're talking about a rock band, their business is communication, it's music, it's how they connect to their audience, to their fans. So, this is their business model. Their business model is literally communication through music to their audience, who are their fans, but also their business partners, venues, and record producers, et cetera, et cetera. So they get to thinking about it and they decide, okay, they are going to do a new album. Now, the album, they decide to go and record it in Quebec. They do it in like a month. And what's really this album becomes notable in a number of ways. It's 7 songs in 40 minutes. And the first 4 songs are generally regarded as one of the best 4-song lineups for the opening of an album in rock history. And that album was this, Moving Pictures. Now, Moving Pictures is generally regarded as one of the best rock albums ever made. They made this album quickly, and the 4 songs that I mentioned were Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ or YYZ. If you're Canadian, this is the airport code for Toronto's International Airport, and also Limelight. And so they produced this album, and it's another massive success. This is generally regarded as one of rock and roll's greatest albums, and this impact extends not only from the way that the music is created, the lyrics, the arrangements. There's some arrangements they do that are compared to only one other rock band that does them, that being the Beatles. But if you look at the album here cover a little bit, you can see that with the title of being Moving Pictures, it's extending that theme here. You have people literally moving pictures, moving men, moving art. And then you have a group of people off to the right-hand side being emotionally moved by the art itself. So this album had a lot of impact, not only musically, but also culturally, visually, the album design, which sadly is something we don't see as much as we used to. So there's a couple lessons here. Number one is the band changed their style a little bit when it was needed. They went a little bit more commercial rock. They had more success, and even more so with Moving Pictures. And then the big lesson here is changing the plan. We all heard the quotes, a plan doesn't survive first contact with the enemy, or Mike Tyson, has a quote to the effect of, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And this is also true when we go out and we do our communications activities with people, whether it's having a customer meeting, doing that big presentation, sending an email, even writing a report, creating infographics, whatever it might be, how we're going to carry ourselves on stage, the type of presence that we want to project. And we can go out with that plan, and something changes. And we can't get too attached to that plan. We have to always keep in mind, how do we best achieve that desired outcome? How do we best connect with our audience so they help us achieve that desired outcome? So Next time you put that plan together, you're putting that presentation together, keep in the back of your mind that it's likely going to change to some degree, perhaps very minor, but you may learn of something, of a new opportunity you weren't anticipating, and you got to make that bigger change. And that bigger change might yield results and benefits that you never thought of. So don't get too attached, stay flexible, stay agile, serve your audience, and always, always keep that desired outcome at the front of your mind.